All right, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for continuing watching our 12 hours straight of MMA talk in partnership with the Jimmy Fund, which is an organization that supports the fight against cancer. We have a special guest, a guy that really needs no introduction, but I'm going to try my best to give an introduction. We got a guy that he was a NCAA national champion wrestler. He represented our country in the Olympics. He won not one but two UFC tournaments. He is a former UFC heavyweight champion. He is a former Pride openweight champion. He's a UFC Hall of Famer. If you can figure all that out, then you know it is the legend himself, one of the greatest fighters of all time, Mark the Hammer Coleman. Mark, how are you?
I'm okay. Thank you. How are you?
I'm excellent. Hey, Mark. So we're doing this thing for charity. We're going 12 straight hours. Where the first question we keep asking everybody is how'd you get into MMA?
It was basically pretty simple. Uh, I was a wrestler, and I seen UFC one, and I immediately knew that's what I wanted to do. I mean, it was I watched it, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I hoped it was real, and once I found out it was real, I knew I had to find a way to get in there.
Now, did you know right away that how much your wrestling would have an impact? I mean, you had other wrestlers, guys like Dan Severn and Don Fry and guys like that, guys that you've fought both those guys. Um, did you know right away that wrestling was going to instantly become like the top art in those early days of MMA?
Well, yes, I did. And I was kind of naive or whatever you want to call it, but wrestlers, we have a lot of pride, and we always felt like we were the toughest guys in the world. Amateur wrestling is the greatest sport in the world, and now I have to include MMA in that as the tied for greatest sport in the world. And but I knew wrestlers we deserved our due, and when I saw it, I knew I really felt like I was going to dominate, but I felt like other wrestlers would come in and dominate, and it's had its ways of jiu-jitsu, stand-up, and then wrestling kind of took over, and wrestlers are great athletes, and now everybody has learned how to wrestle, and it's very hard to take people down, and so now it's become a stand-up game. But if you can't wrestle, you can't fight.
That's right. You definitely certainly did dominate, especially in the early days. Mark, you've been out of the sport, retired for a couple years now. One thing I just want to ask is what do you miss most about competing in MMA?
Oh, I miss it more than you could ever imagine, and I'm sure everybody does when it comes to an end. Um, I've been a competitor since I was 5 years old. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a world champion, or in any sport. I played football and baseball and wrestling. I wanted to be a NFL superstar, or at least an Olympic world champion. And then, you know, I just miss competing, and I would still be competing since, I paid the price, because I had 25 years of wrestling, 15 more years of fighting, and the body doesn't hold up. And the people out there with their health, well, be thankful, because it is it is critical, and it is I just I don't want to complain, but damn, it got me pretty good. I planned on, when I was done with all this competition, I planned on walking a little crooked, but not as crooked as I am now. So, but that's the way it goes, you know.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that. Unfortunately, it's a price to pay to be in such a competitive, hard sport, and as a lot of times us fans, is we got to remember that you guys are humans, that you have a family to go to. You have a life after MMA. MMA is only a short portion of your life, and we appreciate the all the things you've done for the sport. I was going to ask this later. I'm going to transition right to this question because you kind of hit on it. This week I was watching an interview with Big Daddy Gary Goodridge on Inside MMA. I'm not Inside MMA. I forgot which show it was, but he was talking about CTE and the complications from concussions. Obviously, that's something that other sports have taken as the years have gone, they've taken a lot more serious, football and basketball and stuff. As have you had any effect of that? And if you have, what advice would you give younger fighters today?
Have I had any effect on the concussions?
Yes.
Well, I'm not too sure about the concussions. I'm pretty sure. My goal when I went out there and fought was not to get hit. That's why.
It's a good strategy.
My game plan and strategy from day one was take. That's what I did best, was take people down and ground and pound them. And I really didn't get hit as much. I really didn't get hit that much. But I played football quite a bit, and I did get hit. You do get hit in wrestling, and you do get hit in MMA. I think my head's probably one of the only thing that is not that damaged, but the rest of my body is pretty beat up. Pretty beat up right now. It's pain every day, but not complaining. It was incredible, great run, and just wrestling was great. But then I got into the MMA, the UFC, Pride, and just got treated like not like something I was not used to in wrestling. Wrestling was great, but we stuffed 4 guys into a room to compete in a tournament, and that's the way it was. But when you got into MMA, things were a lot better. Not a lot better. You got your own room, and you was able to, do what you're prepared for and get treated, so much better. I mean, UFC treated me great, Pride treated me great, and I have no complaints.
Wow.
And yes, I'm pretty banged up, but I have no complaints. It was an incredible run, and I miss it. I definitely miss it like nothing. I wish if I didn't have the hip replacements and this and that, I would still be out there fighting today somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
So Mark, you talked about fighting. You fought all over the world. You fought in my opinion, the 2 biggest organizations in history, the UFC and Pride. You were very successful in both organizations. And one thing you were talking about is how they treated you. Can you just tell us, was there a big difference between Pride and UFC? And I don't mean as in a sense of the ability of the fighters, more of just way, the culture of Japan compared to how they treat fighters compared to how the UFC treats fighters.
Well, I'm having a tough time hearing you, but I think you said, is there a difference between UFC and Pride?
Yeah.
Well,
basically, my question is not necessarily the level of fighters, because obviously both of them have huge, successful fighters. They're both the best in the world. Mostly, my question is how they treated you. Did they treat you any different in Pride than the UFC?
Well, not necessarily, but Pride, at the time they were on a big run. They had a lot of money, a lot of sponsors, a lot of backing, and it was pretty amazing to me. Just to be treated, you fly first class, you get treated first class, and you got paid pretty well, and that was great. But at the same time, when I left the UFC, they cut me, and I knew I wasn't finished. I just had to get back to the drawing board and figure out what I had to do to come back and be the champion. And I'm very proud that I pulled it together, and I got to Japan, and I don't think they planned on me being able to pull it together, but I did, and yeah, once I did, it was great. Pride, Mr. Saki Kabara, uh, treated me well, treated me great, treated Kevin great. Kevin Randleman, my best friend, he's no longer with us.
Yeah.
Uh,
Another legend of the sport.
Another legend. He's a Hall of Famer for sure.
Of course.
And we had fun. We had fun. We worked hard, and uh, we went out there every time and did our best. And people don't like to hear about injuries, this and that, but it's part of the sport. And I unfortunately I got started. I was already 31 when I got started in the sport, so um, I had to plug away, and luckily my body held up for long enough. I made it 15 years in MMA, 25 years in wrestling, 15 years in MMA, and it was just an incredible ride. And there's no way you're not going to miss it. It was, it, that's what I did. I wanted to compete my whole life, and that's what I did, and it was great. But sometimes it comes to an end, and it did, and you got to move on with your life somehow. It's not easy because that's what I did, and I no longer can do that. It's unfortunate because if I could, I still would be doing it.
So I just want to recap for some of the newer audience that might not know what you speak about. You and Kevin Randleman was one of the first teams in MMA. You guys formed the Hammer House, which was a very successful team. And another thing you were talking about when you left the UFC and went over to Pride, one of the biggest accomplishments I think in MMA history was you winning the Pride Openweight tournament. You said yourself that not many people expect you did it. It was one of the most prestigious tournaments in history of MMA, and you were the victor in that. One thing I want to say, you've accomplished so much in the sport. Like I said in my introduction, is there something you're most proud of, or something you think is your biggest accomplishment?
Well, the Lord blessed me, and they're all so close. Winning UFC 10 was amazing. Winning UFC 11 was great, except I wish I would have had a point in the finals. And then beating Dan Severn for the first ever UFC championship, I'm very proud of that. But then, well, maybe it went to my head a little bit, and I slacked off, and I got my first ass whooping by Maurice Smith, probably because I didn't train. I just thought I could go in there and beat him without training, which is unbelievable in hindsight, but that's what I did. But it was humbling, and I knew I just had to get back to the drawing board and do what I did my whole life. Work hard, and I knew I was going to come back. I was counted out by everybody. I went from the toughest man in the world to a guy that was counted out, but I didn't count myself out. I knew what I had to do, and I did it, and I was not shocked. I planned on winning the Pride Grand Prix because I knew I prepared properly. I went in there, and things worked out, and I won that, and I could have did a lot better. I had a pretty good career, but you always wish you could do it over. I would have did a lot of things differently, but I did pretty good on my own.
Yeah, I think pretty good might be a understatement. I think you had you heard my introduction. You had a career that's extremely successful. So now you just talked about when you fought against Maurice Smith, which I actually think is one of the biggest upsets in UFC history. I remember watching it live in my friend's basement.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You cut out on me, but
Oh,
I didn't hear.
oh, I'm sorry. I was just kind of recapping for any of our newer fans to know Just speaking about your fight against Maurice Smith. One thing that I wanted to ask you about is you fought, like you said, I just said Maurice Smith. You fought Dan Severn, Don Fry, Rando Couture, Fedor Emelianenko. You fought all the biggest stars in the history. I mean, you are one of the
Moriel Shuganhua, Krokop,
yeah the
Fedor
list.
Emelianenko.
Yeah, I could go on and on and
Yeah, I
on and
had
on. You fought everybody.
the,
Is it
I didn't get too many easy ones,
no
which
no?
there is no easy ones, but there are tougher ones, and I took them all on. And nobody wants to hear about injuries or any excuses. I did my best, and I wish I could do it over. And I didn't have a whole lot of coaching. I coached myself in wrestling, pretty much. I was called uncoachable in wrestling by USA Wrestling and all the coaches and this and that because I was kind of bullheaded, hot-headed, and I like doing things my way. But in hindsight, I put together some pretty good camps at the very end of my career, and I didn't like leaving my family. Didn't like leaving my kids. But towards the end, very end of my career, I was getting very old. But I did leave, and I went out to Vegas. I put together some pretty good training camps, and you asked one of my favorite things is I put together a hell of a camp, and the win over Stephan Bonner that really sits
UFC 100
very well with me because he was no easy opponent, and I was able to beat him at 44 years of age, and I'm pretty proud of that. Pretty proud to come back and do that, and at the time, my body was already pretty banged up. But I just worked through it. And after the Randy Couture fight, which I consider one of my worst fights ever, I was pretty ready to fight, but I kind of was overwhelmed. Even though I had been in that cage plenty of times, it was overwhelming to me, and I kind of just froze up and choked. But I definitely didn't think that would be the end of my career, except I went in and got an MRI on my hip, and they said I didn't have a hip. It was pretty much gone, and pretty much the end of my career, which was devastating because you got to figure out what you're going to do next because that's all I really knew is competing. And now you move on with the real life and the real world, and I'm still trying to adjust to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible. You're saying that you competed at UFC 10 and then you were winning fights at UFC 100. I mean, that's pretty remarkable right there. One question I wanted to ask you is like I said, you fought all these top guys. Is there anybody that you wish that you could have got a fight with that you didn't?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I fought, I think I fought at least 10 world champions in my career. So, pretty proud of that. I never had any easy fights, maybe way back in the beginning, but they weren't easy. That's just the competition that was there at the time. But as the sport grew, everybody got tougher. And I just wish I would have put together some better training camps with some better coaches and did it that way. And I got that towards the end of my career, but it was maybe a little too late. I beat Bonner, and then Couture. I must admit I was a deer in headlights that night.
Yeah.
And I planned on after it was over, I went to my room and I just started thinking back to the chalkboard and figure out, work a lot harder, and get back in there. But wasn't meant to be, and not complaining. That was the Lord's plan, and that was it. Otherwise, I'd be on the old man circuit like a lot of these guys are, and I think I'd be out there beating a lot of these old man circuit guys.
Yeah. Now, one thing, obviously, all us MMA fans, we love the backstage stories. Do you have any like crazy backstage story you'd like to share with us?
Uh, I got a lot of backstage stories and stories to tell, but I'm not going to share any right now. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Hey, you're the champ. You can do whatever you want. um,
Thank you.
so I'm gonna let you get out of here. I just want to know, hey, what are you doing nowadays?
Pardon me?
So we're gonna let you get out of here. We just want to know what are you doing nowadays?
Well, I'm trying to figure out life after fighting and figure it out, but like I said, I don't want to dwell on these injuries, but I've had some pretty severe ones.
Yeah.
3 hip replacements. I need another one on the other side. I probably need back surgery.
Oh,
So
jeez.
that kind of consumes me. Consumes me because appreciate your health. All these young guys appreciate why you got it. Don't take nothing for granted. Um, don't think just because you won 100,000 or 150,000 or whatever these guys are getting paid now. Don't take it for granted because it could end tomorrow. It could end tomorrow for a lot of guys. And take it seriously and spend your money very wisely. Invest and do it right. And do it right so you have a future. And I'm lucky enough to. I have a great girlfriend, and she has 3 kids. I have one daughter with her, is 2 years old now. I have my 2 oldest daughters that a lot of people seen in the
Fedor
when I
fight.
fought Fedor.
Yeah.
They brought them to the ring. They're now 17 and 19, and
Wow.
that's life.
Yeah, it goes by
You
fast.
got to deal with life, and you got to move on. And I wish I could. People go on. I wish I could be doing seminars, but I can't. My body won't allow me to do seminars because I don't want my hip to pop out the side pocket.
Yeah.
That's not a pretty sight. But I do appearances, and I'm open to any appearances. I think I do very well with the fans. I love the fans. They've treated me so well, and I hope I've treated them the same in return. And you got to move on. You have to move on.
Yeah, one thing you said, Mark, is that to take care of your health. Like I said earlier, we're doing this 12 straight hours of MMA marathon. We're doing it with a partnership with the Jimmy Fund, which is an organization that supports the fight against cancer. Just get a little personal. I know we've all been affected by cancer in some way. Can you just share somehow that how you've been affected by cancer or someone that you love?
Yeah, I've been affected by cancer by a lot of people I love, and cancer's out there, and they're still battling. I think there's a cure out there. I'm sure there is, and I hope they bring it to the forefront and start letting these cures that people have already created. I hope they start letting them in the game. I'm not too sure if they're keeping them away. I'm not too sure about that, but it's a great thing that you guys are doing today,
Thank you.
and I'm probably be a part of it as best I could here with just a little bit of talk here. But that's great. You got to keep fighting, and cancer's a fight. Cancer's a big fight, but I think there's cures out there that need to be the attention needs to be brought to them instead of maybe being hidden. And take that for any way you want that, but I think there's ways to cure this horrible cancer disease. It gets many, it gets a lot of people, but I think the doctors and all this and that have ways to treat this, and people have to fight, just like being in the cage, being in the ring. People got to fight, stay strong, and beat the battle.
Wow. Mark, before we let you go, it's going to ask one favor. It's obviously going to be very selfish. We do a thing on YouTube every week. It's a live cast called The Clinch. Can you just say, this is Mark the Hammer Coleman, and you're listening to The Clinch?
This is Mark the Hammer Coleman. You're listening to The Clinch. Let me say it over. This is Mark the Hammer Coleman. You're listening to Clinch Radio, and tune in.
Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the Mark the Hammer Coleman. Mark, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Take care.
All right, thank you. Good luck. Keep pushing on.
Thanks,
You're doing a good thing here. You're doing a good thing.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, thank you.